How are we looking? We've got the Didier Drogba picture back there. Stamford Bridge is back there. This season's kit. The kit of the year I was born. I feel as though we made a bit more effort today. We were going to go outside and film, but it's dark at 3:30 in the afternoon, which is ever so slightly frustrating. But yes, guys, welcome back to another video. Welcome to the George Benson Football Channel. Today's video is 5 things that Frank Lampard needs to consider going into this game against Manchester City at the weekend. You could say it's the preview of the official match preview that I'll be uploading on Thursday, maybe Friday. I always decide whether I want to do my Premier League predictions or my match preview. I don't really know, but it's the late kickoff on Saturday. It's a huge game. If you look at the Premier League fixture list, Manchester City away, they're the champions. They were the champions the season before. They're one of the best Premier League teams there's ever been. You realistically don't really expect to go away with anything. It's one of those games that if you lose it, you can't really be too surprised. You can't really be too frustrated. But if we take it back to Chelsea of last season under Maurizio Sarri, just shows how far away we are. I know it's 5-0 down, so I'm not even... Chelsea and Man City in terms of being close shouldn't even be in the same sentence right now in terms of what we knew before this game. 6-0!
I think they can catch up, you know?
It's not even funny. It was the manner of the performance and also the ridiculous scoreline. We were beaten 6-0 at the Etihad in the Premier League last season, and Frank Lampard's Chelsea are going to have to be A, very careful, and B, we're going to have to put in by far the worst performance of the season if we're going to go away with a 6-0 loss on Saturday. I pray it doesn't happen. This international break has literally felt like a dagger in the heart of football fans. Even though England have qualified for the Euros, that was probably slight hyperbole. It's not actually been that bad. In terms of my boredom and missing Chelsea, it's been flipping awful. But there are plenty of things that Frank Lampard needs to decide, and I would love to hear you guys' opinion in the comments down below on the things that we discussed today, so that when we go into that match preview, we've got all of your opinions that I can field into my thoughts as well. But I think the main thing that Frank needs to decide going into this game against Manchester City, of course it's fitness dependent on a few players, but first things first, let's talk about formations. Pep Guardiola's Manchester City, 4-2-3-1, they've got these inverted fullbacks, they play short passing football, and the wingers are often looking to get down to the byline to cut in the crosses for the simplest of goals. Sergio Aguero has scored a hatful against Chelsea. We're not going to address the comments that have come out this week. Supposedly, John Terry said that Chelsea didn't need Aguero or didn't want Aguero, and because it's the international break, all of the newspapers have just been like, oh, isn't this a great thing? No one cares, mate. Frank Lampard's Chelsea, we've been setting up in a 4-2-3-1 formation recently. It's been very successful. We have seen Mason Mount playing in the number 10 role. He's been very key to the pressing nature of Chelsea's play. This weekend, I personally do not think we will see that formation used. To go toe-to-toe with Manchester City, particularly at the Etihad, is asking for trouble, and I firmly expect Frank to change things tactically, as we've seen him do on countless times this season. We look back to the performance in Istanbul for the Super Cup game against Liverpool. Yes, we lost on penalties, but in open play, Chelsea were very good. We lined up in a 4-3-3 formation, and I feel as though this is definitely something we could see this weekend against Manchester City. You also look at the way City played last time out against Liverpool. Liverpool go with a narrow 4-3-3 formation. You see Salah and Mane and Roberto Firmino as their attackers. We've got some very talented players going forward who are in great scoring form, and I feel as though going with a 4-3-3 could definitely see Chelsea replicate something similar to what Liverpool did against City a couple of weeks ago. So if we take a look at Manchester City's key players in an attacking sense, Kevin De Bruyne and Bernardo Silva would probably be the main threats that I would pick out in their team. They've obviously got Riyad Mahrez, Leroy Sané is out, Sergio Aguero is always ready for a goal against Chelsea. However, Bernardo Silva, who I think is Manchester City's key attacking player, is not able to play in this game this weekend. He's suspended after a tweet, fined £50,000. Thank goodness for that. That is a big saving grace for Chelsea. Bernardo Silva is a very good player. He's a very technical player, and he does make things tick for that Manchester City attack. So City are going to be without him. They've also got frailties at the back this season. They've never really been able to field their best 11 defensively, in particular with Laporte's injury. Kompany is no longer a City player. He's been the leader at the back. They've kind of been just mismatching defensive lineups recently. It's probably the reason why they're 9 points behind Liverpool. So if we talk about Frank Lampard potentially going with a 4-3-3 as opposed to the 4-2-3-1, which would probably match up directly with Manchester City, another option is the 3 at the back. This is something that on paper paper, I look at it and I think with the way that we're playing, it should work. We could see Azpilicueta drop into centre-back, Rhys James as a wing-back, Emerson as the left wing-back with Zuma and Tomori as the other centre-backs. But at the moment, I really don't think that is the strongest lineup for Chelsea. We saw it away in Lille. It wasn't the best, and ever since then, we've not seen Frank Lampard go with that formation. So I don't think it's an option, but I wanted to raise it anyway. If Chelsea do choose and decide to go with a 4-2-3-1 formation, the same as we have been recently, do we stick Mason Mount in this team? So a lot of people have been questioning Mason Mount's recent form, which I find absolutely crazy. I often feel as though Chelsea fans sometimes just want a reason to slate individual players. Some people think that Mason Mount has gone missing, and I will say, in order to agree with that point to an extent, this game against Manchester City could be very difficult for Mount to get the ball as much as he would like to. If we do go with a 4-2-3-1, would I personally put Mason in the middle? Yes, I still would. There are doubts about Christian Pulisic, so maybe Mason Mount goes over to the left, but at that point, you might as well just stick Callum Hudson-Odoi on the left, Willian on the right, with Mason Mount in the middle. I don't think we should be worrying too much about Mason's form. I personally don't think it's been that much of a dip. I think Chelsea fans are giving him a bit of a hard time, considering his age, considering the actual contributions he's made this season so far, and the fact he scored his first goal for England during this international break. I am nothing but proud and happy for Mason Mount's start to his Chelsea career. So the next dilemma, and this one is a big one, whether we go with 3 at the back with a wing back, whether we go with 4 at the back, Rhys James or Azpilicueta. It is a question that we all want to know the answer to, and I think it's something that we are slowly seeing transition with Frank's mindset as to who is the best choice for this role at the moment. We saw Frank Lampard make a very bold decision in the game against Crystal Palace. We lost Jorginho to suspension. Azpilicueta is the captain of this team. He's a natural leader, yet Frank Lampard drops Azpilicueta to make way for Rhys James coming in at right back. What do we see? We see Rhys James pocket Wilfried Zaha, and rumour has it he's still got him firmly in the pocket now. He's not letting him go anytime soon until maybe he sticks Kevin De Bruyne in there, or David Silva in there, or Riyad Mahrez in there. It's something we'd love to see at the weekend. Will Frank Lampard go with Rhys James for this game against Manchester City? It's a tough fixture, we all know that. Azpilicueta, he's got experiences in fixtures such as this one, but does Frank continue to surprise us? And I don't really think anybody would be that surprised. If we look at the quality that Rhys James has, I think of all of the young players right now at Chelsea, Rhys James is the one that I think has got the most potential. And we're talking about players that can go right to the top of the game, and you could already argue that they're already heading towards the top of the game, having broken into Chelsea's first team. Rhys James, would I stick him in? I personally would. I think he's 100% ready. But the next thing that we could discuss as a potential option, and another thing for Frank to consider, is Rhys James could play in the midfield. If we're talking about N'Golo Kante, potentially, we never know at the moment if Kante's going to be fully fit. It looks as though there are no fresh injury worries, and Kante should be ready to play the game against Manchester City. If we're going with a 4-3-3, could Rhys James be used in that midfield? I highly doubt he'll actually play in that position for this one, but it's definitely something for Frank to consider moving forward. So the next thing that Frank needs to consider is Christian Pulisic's fitness. Apparently he's had a hip injury and he's a big doubt for the game this weekend against Manchester City. If we're talking like just little silly things here and there, I've taken him out of my fantasy team because quite frankly, the United States, they often rely on him. They didn't take him, suggesting that the injury to Pulisic's hip is actually a little bit worse than just something that can be worn off over the international break. If Pulisic isn't ready to play in this one, Chelsea are missing out on one of their key attacking players. He's been in the best form of any of the attacking players recently, and I certainly feel, particularly with Chelsea's form away from home, having won 7 in a row on the road, Christian Pulisic will be able to offer a lot for Chelsea going forward against a Manchester City defence that have definitely looked vulnerable at multiple times this season. So at the moment, it's looking very unlikely that Pulisic is going to be fully fit. Of course, right now it's Tuesday. A lot can be done, a lot can change in the meantime going into that game on Saturday. And I'm sure as we get closer to my match preview, we'll get to understand a lot more about whether or not Pulisic is going to be fit. But considering everyone is excited to see a midfield 3 of Kante, Jorginho and Mateo Kovacic, I think that if Pulisic isn't fit for this game against City, it would set Chelsea up perfectly to go and deploy a 4-3-3 away at Manchester City with Kante, Jorginho and Kovacic in the midfield three, and then Hudson-Odoi and probably Willian alongside Tammy Abraham as the front three. I think that would certainly work for Chelsea. It would see us do something very similar to that of what Liverpool did in their victory against Manchester City last time out. Considering the injury to Pulisic, I would probably go with a 4-3-3. Some people are worried and concerned about the performances of Callum Hudson-Odoi in recent weeks, but again, I keep saying the same thing. We've got to be careful with that injury. It's something that his confidence isn't going to come back 100% straight away, and I'd be worried if Callum wasn't being slightly cautious over doing something to that Achilles again. So we're seeing him get minutes. He did get a few minutes for England. I wouldn't say it was his most impressive performance for the England side, but at the same time, the minutes that he keeps getting under his belt are just going to do wonders, particularly playing for your country, to build up that confidence for Callum to start driving at players again, taking players on. He did all of his take-ons successfully for England against Kosovo, and despite some Chelsea fans thinking his recent form hasn't quite been as good, I certainly feel Callum is getting stronger and stronger and will start to see his best in a Chelsea shirt sometime soon. You've also got to remember, he does have that ability to take players on, which considering the Man City defence have looked shaky, could be a key attacking outlet for Chelsea this weekend. So the main questions right now that we've raised in this video is the formation. We've got the 4-2-3-1, the 4-3-3, and the kind of outsider potential of going with wing-backs with Rhys James and Emerson, with Azpilicueta dropping back into centre-back. I'm not going to talk about that one too much because I don't think it's going to happen, but at the moment it's looking as though a 4-3-3, which would see Mason Mount most likely drop out of the team. Depending on any injuries, we could see an injury potentially if Kante isn't ready for it, and Frank Lampard knows that every time Kante goes out on the pitch at the moment, because he's not really had that much recovery time, it is always a risk, and he's not played that many minutes for France. There are no brand new injury worries for Chelsea going into this fixture, so I feel as though we've got to make the most of Bernardo Silva's absence. We've got to try and go for the game, but the difficult thing with Manchester City, and it's always a test, is how much do we go at Manchester City? When teams go to the Etihad and try and play, they often get wiped out of the park, and no disrespect, the Manchester City team is one of the best teams in the Premier League. Whether they've got injury worries defensively or not, going forwards, they are going to be as big of a threat as any. They've scored 35 goals so far this season. It's a ridiculous sum, and Chelsea, this is the biggest challenge yet for the young defenders. For example, for Kayo Tomori, Rhys James is given minutes. This is going to be the biggest test of their careers so far, coming up against some brilliant attacking players, whether it's Aguero or Gabriel Jesus. I probably expect it to be Aguero, considering he scored 15 goals in his career against Chelsea, which is a ridiculous sum. Whatever team Manchester City set out for this game, Frank Lampard's defenders, particularly the young ones, are going to need to be on their A games going into this one. Expectations wise, we're going to obviously go into things a lot more during my match preview later on this week. I don't want to go into this game with any expectations. I want to see a fearless Chelsea team going to the Etihad and doing what we've done so often this season, playing with confidence, playing and continuing to press even when we don't have the ball, and hopefully we can make the most of City's injury worries, the Bernardo Silva suspension, and what you could say has not been the best start to the season from Pep Guardiola's men. Approach with caution. Every time they get beat, they come back and smash the next team. Chelsea do not want to be in that conversation, but you could also argue the biggest game in the next few days is the away game against Valencia, which will completely shape our Champions League and European season. Go to City and lose, no one probably would have expected otherwise. The Valencia game, we cannot afford to lose that one. So I'm not trying to play the two off in terms of importance, but for Chelsea fans, to gain some perspective, if we do lose this match, it probably wasn't a game we'd have expected to get anything from anyway. Not that I'm making excuses, I definitely feel this Chelsea team have got more than enough about them. We have seen some brilliant away performances so far this season. 7 away wins in a row, 6 Premier League wins in a row. Who knows what is going to happen on Saturday night? I really can't call it at this point. But anyway, thank you guys for watching this video. Plenty of talking points to discuss. Let me know in the comments down below what team you think Frank's going to field. I will give my match preview slightly later on in the week once we've understood a bit more about injuries, once we've seen about availability, and maybe wait for Frank. And maybe wait for Frank's press conference before the game as well. As I said at the start of the video, if you're not yet subscribed to the George Benson football channel, make sure to do so. Hit the like button if you enjoyed this video, and let me know your thoughts going into this huge game away at Manchester City at the weekend. I, for one, cannot wait. I'm going to be going to the game, so hopefully I'll see some of you guys there. I will catch you all tomorrow. Goodbye.